Welcome back to Literacy Listens, the podcast where we dive into all things listening comprehension and its powerful role in literacy development. I'm Amber, and I'm joined today by Brian, our listening comprehension expert.
Hey Amber, great to be here. Today's topic is a big one. We're talking about what good comprehension actually looks like, going from the literal to the deep.
It really is, but before we get into it, a quick note. The voices you hear on this podcast are AI-generated, and the script was developed with support from AI technology. The content you'll hear reflects research carefully curated and organized by Read Charlotte, a nonprofit dedicated to improving literacy outcomes for students in Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, so let's dive in, Amber. Let's picture two students that have both just listened to the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears. After asking some questions and discussing the book with both students, you realize one student has a deep understanding of the text, while one student only has a shallow understanding of the text.
Okay, how can you tell? What's the difference?
Great question. Well, the first student told me that Goldilocks went into the bear's house, ate their porridge, broke a chair, and slept in a baby bear's bed. Then the bears came home and she ran away.
Okay, well, that student isn't wrong, are they?
No, not at all. They understood exactly what happened in the story. However, this is what I heard from the other student. I think Goldilocks kept trying the porridge, chairs, and beds because she was curious and wanted to find something that felt safe and comfortable. Maybe she didn't mean to cause trouble, but she didn't think about how her choices would make the bears feel.
Wow. Okay, see, that's different. It's a whole other level. What do these responses show us about depth of comprehension?
Exactly. They show us that comprehension isn't just an on or off switch. It's a continuum. It runs from shallow to deep. That first student showed what we call shallow comprehension. It's a literal understanding of the text.
Right. He was just repeating what was explicitly there.
But that second student, they show deep understanding. They use clues from the text and their own experiences to infer why Goldilocks acted as she did and how her actions affected others. They were beyond what was explicitly stated in the text.
And from a teacher's perspective, that distinction it's everything. You have students who are amazing at retelling the plot points. They can tell you what happened in order. But when you ask them why it happened or how a character was feeling, it's just a blank stare. They're getting the words, but they aren't, constructing the meaning behind them.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's like looking at the surface of a pond. Shallow comprehension is just seeing what's right there on the surface. You see the water, the reflection of the sky, maybe a few lily pads floating.
I like that. It's the literal, visible stuff.
Right. But deep comprehension, that's what happens when you put on a pair of goggles and look beneath the surface.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Suddenly you see all the life under there, the fish swimming, the plants growing from the bottom, the way everything is connected in a whole ecosystem. You're not just seeing the what, you're understanding the how and the why of the pond.
And that's our goal as educators, right? To give every student a pair of goggles.
So how do we do that? How do we move kids from just skimming the surface to actually diving in and exploring what's underneath?
Well, just one important piece of the puzzle, especially in the early years, happens during read-alouds. The kinds of questions we ask can open the door to deeper thinking. But questioning alone isn't enough. Kids also need to hear us model how readers think, and they need support and practice making sense of what they hear. And it comes down to the kind of questions we ask. We as adults tend to default to shallow, literal recall questions.
The what questions. What color was her dress? What did he eat for breakfast? What did they find in the forest? They're easy to ask, and they give you a quick check that the kids were, at least paying attention.
Exactly. They're surface questions. They invite a surface-level, shallow response. To get kids to go deeper, we have to model that curiosity. We have to ask why and how questions.
So instead of, what did Lily do? We ask, why do you think Lily did that? Instead of, was the puppy sad? We could ask, how do you know the puppy was sad? What clues do the author or illustrator give us?
That's the move. It's the difference between asking for a fact and asking for an interpretation. Now, for our youngest students, this can be a big leap, so we need to provide scaffolds.
Right, you can't just ask a 3-year-old, what was the internal motivation of the antagonist?
Probably not, but you can scaffold. You could offer a possible inference as a starting point. Something like, I wonder if the wolf was grumpy because his tummy was empty. What do you think? You're giving them the language of inference to try on.
You're basically handing them the goggles for a second and saying, hey, try looking through these. And all of this building of deep thinking, it just reinforces what we talked about back in episode 1. This entire process starts with listening comprehension.
Absolutely. These are comprehension muscles that we can and should be building through oral language and read-alouds long before a child can decode a single word on their own. It's the foundation for everything that comes later in reading.
It really makes you think. So here's a reflective question for all the teachers and caregivers listening. Next time you do a read aloud, notice whether your questions invite shallow or deep thinking. What do you learn from your students' responses?
That's a great challenge. And it's important to remember that this isn't about getting the right answer. It's about the process of thinking. Sometimes a student's answer might seem way off base, but if you ask them, what made you think that? You can uncover a fascinating and often logical line of reasoning.
And speaking of the complexity of student thinking, this connects beautifully to what we'll explore in our next episode about the intricate nature of listening comprehension itself.
Yes, in our next episode, we'll look at what makes listening comprehension so complex. We'll talk about how it's not just one skill, but several interdependent skills working together. We'll even share an analogy to help visualize this and give you a strategy, like focusing on one high-leverage skill during repeated read-alouds that makes this complexity manageable.
I can't wait for that one. Thank you for listening to Literacy Listens. Be sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode. For more information and resources, please visit our website, listeningcomprehension.org, and check out the show notes for a deeper dive into everything we discussed. We'll see you next time.